There seems to be a bit of a wave of discontent around tech fans surrounding the Pixel 10, and there tends to be a lot of people that they absolutely hate this phone. I want to get a bit candid here and ask, why do people seem to hate this device so much? And get into the hows, the whys, the good, the bad, the different. But yeah, let's talk about it in this video. One quick thing for me first though, slap that subscribe button like it owes you money if you love or you hate the Pixel 10, or even if you're indifferent. We have deep dives into more devices from Android across the entire ecosystem very, very soon. Cheers. So a quick scour of internet comments, social media platforms, and even our own comment section here on YouTube, and you might think that nobody even likes the Pixel 10 series apart from hardened fans. We're 10 generations deep into the Pixel lineup, and at least in theory, this device should be the crown zenith, the tip of the iceberg, whatever you want to call it. But why do the most vocal people in the Android community seemingly hate the Pixel 10? I want to examine the good, the bad, the ugly, and understand why at least people might be feeling this way, as I think it gets into a deeper problem in the smartphone industry, period. Let's get into some bad stuff right away, because I think by picking a Pixel in 2025, you're accepting certain compromises. You won't be able to do things like run some of the most popular games at the best graphical and performance settings, processor incentive tasks won't be as fast, they won't be as good, and it all stems from one problem area. Tensor G5 is the undoubted elephant in the room. It's the chip at the heart of the Pixel 10 lineup, which is now being built in partnership with the TSMC foundry. I think it is floundering more than a little at this point in time. It's barely even a high-end chip. There's no getting around it. It is an upper mid-ranger by 2025 standards. Was that Pixel 5 experiment with an actual mid-range chip supposed to be a one-off? Or was it preparation for us for a long-term future where the Pixel phone simply offers middle-of-the-road power in a premium chassis? I'm starting to think that more and more as time goes on. It definitely feels like that with recent Pixels, and it almost again feels like we're coming full circle once again on the Pixel 5 almost 5 years down the line. Sure, the Tensor G5 and the Pixel 10 builds on the previous generation, but I don't think it does enough in meaningful ways to the true blue Android nerd out there to be really enthused about. Qualcomm is undoubtedly outcompeting Apple's best mobile silicon and beating the iPhone in some areas. Right now, even if AI is touted as a main beneficiary of the Tensor chipset, you can do common phone things just as well on last year's best phones. Think the Galaxy S24 Ultra, the OnePlus 12, all of those kind of things. And on top of that, mobile gamers aren't going to get the best experience on a Pixel. I can't necessarily speak for everyone who cares about specifications, but I would like to see Google at least within, say, 5 to 10% of last year's best Snapdragon chip in the next year or so. So whatever Qualcomm has released this year, Tensor G6 probably has to get within, like I say, within touching distance of those. That might appease some people, it will appease me, but it simply isn't good enough for everybody out there. I think even some of the camera hardware hasn't been updated in a number of years now, which is another frustration. Maybe persisting with a familiar system is good for software tuning, but it does limit some of the specific capabilities. And we're starting to see Google offload functions like Video Boost to the cloud to help hide some of the shortcomings, at least in the video stakes. Yes, it makes video very competitive and arguably one of the best on mobile once Google's servers can actually work some of that magic. Samsung though and OnePlus devices can do 8K video on device, and the difference isn't quite as stark as you would expect given the sheer power of cloud processing over a mobile CPU. So yes, we would love to see Google start to do things a lot more locally, not rely on the cloud too much. Arguably though, the biggest problem area and one of the main areas of hate facing the Pixel 10 is its price strategy. At over $1,000, you have a smartphone that will sit alongside the biggest and the best in the industry on store shelves and an online outlets. And this leaves the Pixel 10 almost exposed when your competitors are offering all the bells and all the whistles, the best performance, exceptional experiences, and making that price tag at least seem a little bit more palatable on devices like the S25 Ultra, for instance. With the Pixel having many cutbacks and also setbacks, Google just has nowhere to hide now. At around about $800 to $900, I think misfires are a little bit forgivable. Look at the OnePlus lineup, for instance, but maybe not necessarily entirely here. Value for money is very, very important when you're buying a smartphone, and let's be honest, the Pixel 10 doesn't really offer that at its RRP or MSRP. And it's clear that Google wants the Pixel to be seen as a direct alternative to the iPhone, specifically in North American markets, although we don't have many markets globally where you can buy this. A Pixel is a premium product by shipping at a similar price point. If you sell your phone at a markdown price, or your best phone at a markdown price, I think it probably does change the wider perception or public wider perception. People might think it's inferior, but I do think having a very high retail price or one comparable to your competitors means you have no excuses if you do fail to meet those buyer expectations. You're judged by what you can do at that price point, not what you can do elsewhere. This is by far the biggest reason for me that I think rightly the Pixel 10 has seen a fair amount of hate from fans and detractors alike, and there are a lot of people on both sides. It's one of the reasons that in years gone by, price cuts have become synonymous with the Pixel lineup. You can overlook certain pain points if that price is right, and I think a lot of you do. It doesn't help that Google, or if Google did ship right out of the gate at under $900, then the iPhone knockoff claims probably would be even stronger. There's no denying who influenced the change to a boxy redesign, which is the same again this year, which is another complaint, and that doesn't help the Pixel 10, as most people expect more changes from the inside, especially if the design stays the same as the previous generation. To simplify further still, a premium product demands better hardware in every single area and every single component, and we just haven't got that this year with the Pixel 10. So I've laid into the Pixel 10 there, but most people who use or have used a Pixel often feel the same way I do about how good the software is compared to the competition out there. Even with the compromises, as I mentioned earlier, it's actually credit to Google that the Pixel lineup can actually shoehorn its way into the conversation of best phones almost solely on the pure experience alone. Material 3 Expressive, I think, is a big step forward to an identity that is somewhat lacking elsewhere on Android right now. We're already seeing OEMs lean more heavily into Apple's clone status as liquid glass has leaked out of that walled garden and into the open meadows beyond that. No other Android device maker, save Nothing, really appears to be willing to try its own things and put a unique spin on their vision of a mobile OS. Everybody just seems to see what Apple does, look at what they do, and make a cheap version of that, and it's going to do that this year. Expect more Android OEMs to just copy liquid glass outright. Google isn't doing that. Naturally, they're not going to. While we do lament as well some of the lack of video prowess, specifically, at least locally processed video that is, there is no doubt that Google and the Pixel in specifics have the best photography, and some of the stills photography ranks very, very highly. It's all down to tuning, it's all down to owning, as the Pixel 10 camera hardware is, as we say, almost identical to the Pixel 8 series in the main camera stakes. Bigger sensors could make a difference, and I'd love to see those, but we see many Chinese OEMs go for bigger, better camera hardware, only to fail at getting that tuning right. And yes, better hardware and bigger sensors does mean you'll get better photos, but tuning is really, really important. I think for me, a Pixel phone almost always ekes every last drop from the camera hardware available, and that really hasn't changed since day one, and I don't want to see Google do that or try and disrupt that formula too much. I think features as well like ProRes zoom, while they're controversial, when they work, they elevate the capabilities of the admittedly tiny sensors that do ship on modern smartphones. Google is really good at software, and AI is also really good at getting and doing lots of things. That combination is going to be key in the future. We're all going to have to accept some level of AI integration, or at least hope that someone else offers an alternative AI-free mobile software experience. And honestly, I don't think that will be a bad thing, but yes, if Google can integrate AI correctly, which so far they're doing not a great deal in that respect, then it could be really, really good for the Pixel lineup down the line. And getting into that a little bit, I think if functionality like Magic Q can be built on and integrated into more places, there are some really impressive things that can be effectively automated on your phone. Right now, it's too limited to be considered a real selling point, but yeah, I'm excited to see what this does and how Google develops it as time progresses. Just touching on the design as well, I think design changes can be both a positive and negative trait simultaneously. A positive because do we really need our phones to wildly vary from year to year if we're using them in the same way? I think sticking to a popular design isn't necessarily a bad thing. Tweaking and refining rather than trying to reinvent the wheel every year has led to massive problems on past Pixel phones, and it's good to see Google being confident in a visual design language and instead working to improve all areas. There is certainly room for improvement, but you're able to do that better within the pre-established framework of a hardware design that you're happy with. The upgrade path is less divergent though, and that does bring about some limits of its own. But for now, I do like to see Google sticking with the design that they're proud of and that really does work for them. And while there's been plenty of well-worn criticism of Tensor G5, it does address the major overheating complaints of previous generations. Since its introduction with the Pixel 6, Tensor has been, or at least heat has been a killer for every single Tensor-powered phone. it's one of those things that Google has managed to finally get a grip on this year, and hopefully that means that it can start to make those performance gains, which are going to be technically easier for them to do now that they have a chip that they can rely on a little bit more heavily. On top of that, faster storage on specific phones, those with 256GB and above, makes everything feel even more snappy in tandem with the minor upgrade of the chipset. It just means that your phone should age more gracefully, and it's really important if Google is going to support those phones for 7 years at a time, which hopefully they do. Yeah, we're not sure at this point because we're 5 years into the Tensor lineup, and yeah, it's going to be a change for the good, hopefully, if we get more performance as these phones progress. So there's a few good things and some bad things. I think we're definitely a little bit more edging towards the bad side of things, but there are a few ways to approach the question, is the Pixel 10 a good phone? And as every single year goes by, the answer is nowhere as simple as it should be. Yes, I do think underneath all of the bluster, the Pixel 10 is a decent device in lots of ways, and in particular, a few key areas. The frustration is that more than ever before, not all Pixel 10 devices are being created equally. That's arguably a bigger pain point this year, and is why a lot of criticism has been leveled at this, because this is the most competent set of Google hardware we've ever seen. There is confidence in the product that may have been less obvious in years gone by, and that's great to see. But if you want the best Google has to offer, you're going to have to go for the Pixel 10 Pro XL, the 1TB model specifically for the even faster zoned UFS 4.0 storage, but you do get UFS 4.0 storage on the base model and above. For anyone wanting all the best bits but a smaller size, you have to get the 256GB model of the Pixel 10 Pro. If you want the best base model, you have to that Google actually sells right now, then you have to get the 256GB version Pixel 10. Only the 10 Pro XL comes with that baseline 256GB storage out of the box and UFS 4.0, which I think is really, really important. And it's slightly frustrating that Google is actually doing this with their devices this time around. Now, the bigger complaint is the generational performance gap between the best of the rest and Google's own hardware lineup. Why should someone from an older phone upgrade if there isn't a major leap in the day-to-day experience? Well, maybe Google has painted itself into a corner a little bit, given the impressive history of the best core software feel on Android. There is literally nowhere for Google to hide now at the top and bottom of the market anymore. Cheap phones are excellent, and expensive phones leave no stone unturned to try and validate their exorbitant fees. The company now needs to at least attempt to do a better job of pleasing everyone in the space. You can't forget about your core community using your products for years, just to throw the baby out with the bathwater in search of new customers and fans and maybe those iPhone converts. In that regard, yes, I do think some of the hate towards the Pixel 10 is probably justified. Maybe some have gone a little bit overboard, but I do think most people will agree that despite the foibles, flaws, and the annoyances, there is another damn good phone under all of that frustration. That's not an apology for Google by any stretch of the imagination. We just want to at least see improvements year over year. And yes, there have been improvements over last year's Pixel 9. Maybe those hardened Android fans might start to change their stance if we start to get real performance gains and, of course, a price point that makes more sense. I want to ask you though, do you think the Pixel 10 deserves some of the hate that it has been getting online? It's something that, we don't normally talk about here on the channel because, we're not always online and we're not permanently online, but it's something that I thought would be a really interesting topic to kind of broach. But let me know what you think down in the comment sections below. Do you think it's justified? Do you think it's not justified? And until next time, I'll speak to you later.